Hmm.
Hello, folks. A very happy Valentine's Day to everyone from very snowed in Boston here. My name is Paresh Motiwala. I'll be your moderator for the day. And our presenter is none other but Tom Grohser. He's a good friend of mine now, and we have kind of spoken at so many of these events together. And this is one of the topics that has absolutely intrigued me so much. And this, especially coming from a tech heavy guy, was absolutely fabulous. So I wouldn't let anything come between you and Tom. And feel free to ask any questions. I am monitoring the question and answer or the question room here. So, Tom, take it away, sir. And I will put myself on mute.
Okay. So I hope everybody can hear me. I don't know. I'm in a room alone talking to my screen. So that's very weird to me because I normally present in the actual audience. So it's very different. So, yes, I'm gonna talk about why it's so hard for me to hire people as database developers, DBAs, and other data related roles. And the funny story behind this presentation is I did the, I was filling out, I was doing a phone screen with a candidate, and as many times before, the person was not doing a very good job on the phone screen. And so I occupied myself by filling out SQL Saturday submissions, and he got really bad. So I just started making up. Wouldn't it be awesome if I had a talk about explaining how to not behave in an interview? And while the phone screen was finished, I was actually had a new abstract, and just for jigs and giggles, I submitted it. And in the first year, it got picked up by 9 different SQL Saturdays. So I guess there is some demand, and now we are doing it for a podcast or webcast, webinar to an online audience. So great. So this is how all this came to be. So let's, I'm still struggling with this. So here's some simple questions we ask candidates that want to join our company, but not if they want to be a DBA. This is for the questions we ask our researchers that try to figure out how the financial market works. But for DBAs, the questions are much, much simpler, as you will see in that presentation, and they still manage to not do this. Another fun story about that screen, I actually made a mistake building it. The one formula right next to the pass logo is actually upside down. And in the 2 years I'm giving this presentation, nobody has ever called me out on it. So now I start calling myself out. I still kept it upside down because I think it's hilariously funny that nobody ever noticed. And that has nothing to do with math skill. It's just numbers are upside down. So someone should have noticed. Anyway, moving on. So a little bit about myself. Well, PowerPoint is playing an animation. My name is Thomas Grohser. I currently work for a company called Entity Data that then rents me out to other companies, mostly in the financial sector. Um, I'm with SQL Server forever. I started when 16-bit was the high end of the line, and stuck with SQL ever since, both as a developer and as a DBA, and the last couple, like 10 years, mostly as an infrastructure architect, building the infrastructure, but always being involved in the DBA, in the whole database department, team, however you want to call it, and very heavily involved in the hiring process of new candidates. Yeah, with SQL 25 years this year, so looking forward to the next 25, and then I'm gonna retire. So why I'm talking about this? It's since about 2004, I work for large corporations. And with large corporations, I mean for companies that have more than 1,000 employees and have usually something like a database group, which is usually more than one team. And the whole time I was working for these corporations, I always was looking for good DBAs, good database developers, good BI experts, ETL specialists, all kinds. It's data related. We were always looking for it. Yeah? And there was always more demand than supply. Yeah? It might have to do with the location our company is. I mean, we are right next to New York, so there's plenty of people in the area. We are, or before that, I was in the middle of Europe, so there's maybe not, but yes, but it was always hard to hire. So in this time, I don't have an exact number, but I'm sure it was way more than 1,000 resumes that I had to read, and they were pre-filtered by HR, so that the real ones that had nothing to do with databases, they were just applying to get their social security benefits or something so that they can prove we applied for 15 jobs but nobody hired me. These resumes didn't even make it to my desk. The resumes on my desk had actual people with some sort of an experience in DBA world or some sort of experience in technology that wanted to explore the world of data. I did more than 300 phone screens, meaning I spent 300 times half an hour to 1 hour on the phone asking questions and trying to figure out what's going on and is that person someone we're looking for. And from these 300s, I invited in over 100 to do an in-person interview. And in that thing, and I have to fix my slides because, believe it or not, yesterday that number went up to actually 10 people. I found number 10 yesterday, completely out of the blue, didn't expect it, but found someone great, and I will explain throughout this talk why he stood out from the rest. And it's not his school, it's not his past history. He convinced three of us just by having a very good interview. So instead of an agenda in this talk, I have what I call the 3 stages of grief. The first stage is the resume. The second stage is the phone screen. And the third one is the in-person interview. And the grief is on my end, very rarely on the other side. So, resume. This is the first impression. And full disclosure, I'm not from the United States. I spent the majority of or about half of my work life in Europe and the other half in the United States. So the way resumes are written are very different in Europe than they are written in the United States, and that has mostly to do with laws and what you can put in a resume or not. So the biggest difference is every resume in Europe has a picture of the person in it. I've never seen a US resume with a picture of the person. So very, very different way. But there are some similarities that from my opinion, are really bad. And this is very importantly to understand, and I hope this is recorded so I can prove later on that I made that decision. This is the way I find candidates. I'm not speaking for the whole industry. I'm not speaking for HR departments. I'm not speaking for professional headhunters. I'm not speaking for anybody else, but my personal way, how I try to figure out who is the best person for the job, and is that someone that I can hire and entrust with what I have to manage here. So I fully understand there are what I call gigantic corporations that have hundreds of thousands of employees, and they have very, very different ways of selecting who they are. Yeah? But I work for companies that are medium-sized, so in the 1,000 to 2,000 employees. So they're big enough to actually have interesting projects, very interesting projects from a data perspective. That's why I chose to work there. And then these companies are looking for data professionals. And that's what this talk about is. You want to get a job at a very interesting place that has very challenging and very interesting demand in data, database development, management, analysis, all these parts. This is what these mid-sized companies are looking for. Yeah? Um, yes. So first of all, if your resume about SQL Server doesn't include these versions of SQL Server, if your resume still says, I only have experience on SQL 2005, it's not going to get very far with me. And I fully understand some companies are very slow in upgrading, but that shouldn't hold you back. All these versions have a free developer edition or a free tryout edition, a free evaluation edition that you can download. You can run on pretty much any modern laptop, desktop hardware that was sold in the last 10 years, and you can play around with it. So at least if it's not experience on the job, it should be experience in your own private lab or so. But by now, these, by the way, are the only really supported versions of SQL Server. The 2008 is around for a little while longer, but not that much. So if a resume doesn't mention any of these in any form, size, or shape, there's a big chance I'm not going to keep reading. Yeah? The second one, this is the most annoying one when I see these resumes that have like 10 pages of tasks people did. And in 90%, number one is I took backups, which I fully understand. Taking backups is very important. But is this really the number one important task you did? Because honestly, if you're a good DBA, I expect you to automate that and have some job that does that for you every day. You're not sitting there and typing backup database like every day. I hope not. But this is like, even if you're a DBA, unless backups are your only job that you did, it should not be the number one in the list. It should be there that you manage the backups and made sure backups and restores could be performed in a high quality way, but don't list I took backups from every database in the resume. That's something that's just like, it's yeah. The second one is resumes that literally list every SQL command they ever used in their life. You'll maybe laughing right now at the other end. Yes, they are there. They're literally listing each command, create database, drop database, create table, drop table, blah, blah, blah. It's amazing. Yeah, I'm going to skip over that resume, I guess. Yeah. I like to read a summary at the beginning. What are you doing? Why you like it? And thing is, you can list all the other stuff that you might need for other companies, but have some kind of a summary that explains me how you look at this from a bigger picture point. Yeah? I make sure my databases are highly available, fully recoverable, fully secured in our environment, blah, blah, blah. That, and not I used create login, I used backup database, I use this. Yeah? It's just the way it's presented in the resume. Yeah? Put yourself in the shoes of the person that gets a stack of 20 resumes and they all go 10, 15, 5, 6, 7, sometimes 10 pages and list basically books online with I did it, yeah, behind each and every entry. That's not appealing. Yeah? If I have like a nice little entry at the beginning that rounds up, hey, I'm the guy that built the infrastructure, or I'm the guy that did all the performance troubleshooting. And of course, if my coworkers were on vacation, I took care of the rest as well. Yeah, something like this, much more appealing at the beginning. Yeah? You can still list everything you did, but give me a chance with a very quick read to get an idea what you were doing. Yeah. And then my favorite one for the phone screen, that's the setup for the phone screen. If you claim in your resume that you're an expert on something, then expect an expert question on something. Yeah? It's always awesome when I find someone saying, I'm an expert in DBCC CheckDB, or I'm expert on log shipping. And then you ask a question later on the phone screen, and they have no clue about it because they just copied and pasted it in the resume because they found it on someone else's resume and it looked good. Yeah? So this is my first impression from the resumes. And as you could see from my numbers in the beginning, usually 1 out of 3 to 4 resumes makes it actually to a point where I say, hey, looks interesting. I want to talk to that person. But remember, that's from a filtered set where HR filtered out all the nonsense ones. Where I don't know, over the years, I had some really things. I had um, a bouncer from a cocktail bar that applied as a DBA. So thing, um, so stuff like this. So they don't count here. Second step that you have to pass in most companies, and especially in mine, to get closer to the job is the phone screen. Yeah, and this is a very serious part because for a company to actually invite someone in for an in-house interview, that's a big commitment. Yeah? In our case, we spend half a day with the candidate once we bring him in. So that means a number of 5 to 6 people will give up several hours of the day to talk to the candidate and talk to each other, come up with and fill out the questionnaire, how the candidate did, and in the various areas we're looking for, and then come together to a conclusion. Are we moving forward or not? So the phone screen is just a first gap that usually one, maybe two of us are talking to the person on the phone first to get a feeling, are we in the same ballpark of what we're looking for on what that person is. Yeah? And why I'm saying take it serious is I had so many phone screens where the guy on the other end, and I'm saying guy because unfortunately there's still way more applicants that are male than female. So there are occasionally some women that apply for a job, but very, very little. But it's getting better. So why I'm saying take it serious. Yeah, this is the first personal impression you make. Yeah, so it's good. We can't see you, but we can now hear you. You can talk to us and explain a little bit um, what you've done, and we will ask 1 or 2 questions which are not very detailed, which just gives us an idea at which level you both are thinking about SQL Server or data, and at which level you are from your skill set. Yeah. So number one, don't be late. I have no idea how many times I called someone and nobody picked up. So you're making an appointment with a company you're willing to hire, and you're late before you even started the job. The second one is be at a quiet place. It's awesome to have a phone screen when there's sirens in the background. I've seen people that were sitting in a parking lot right next to the highway with open windows in the summer, and every 10 seconds a truck drove by. I've seen people doing phone screens or trying to do phone screens right next to a train line, and then one of these 300 car trains moved by for 5 to 10 minutes. Not fun. Yeah? Not fun for either of us. Lots of repeating, lots of very slow pace. Just not a good impression. Yeah, have good reception. Yeah, if there's 0 bars on your cell phone, it's not gonna go well. Yeah, um, yes, yeah. So don't be in a car, don't be in a bar. I had people being in a bar, but then bar fights broke out or something. Another good one is if you're already in a job and you're applying for a new job, don't do the interview from your current workplace and then suddenly realize you can't actually openly talk because people might understand, and then you try to hide in a broom closet, or I don't know what happened, but it's very weird thing is. Same goes for a public place. If there's many other people, noises will happen. People scream, all kinds of things. Yeah, and same goes for outside. Nature is uncontrollable. When wind blows into your microphone of your phone, it's just bad. Yeah? So lots of times phone screens where it the person that interviews is just annoyed because the person on the other end didn't take these 2 or 3 minutes to prepare things like me today. I work in a small office that I share with 2 other people, but I reserved a room where I can sit in, doors closed, The loudest noise is the air condition blowing a little bit, but I can present this undisturbed. I could have just done it from my desktop. I'm wearing headphones, I'm wearing a microphone. You probably would not notice the difference, but there would be a chance that someone would just disrupt me or something like this. So take the 5 minutes when you're applying for a job to make the phone screen a pleasant uh, um, experience for both sides. Yeah? This is the part that I cannot stress enough. Pay attention and try to answer the actual question. It's amazing how many times in my life, and this is in phone screens and in-person interviews, I've asked a question and got a perfectly good answer for a different question. So my example, yeah, no idea how many times I ask a question like, how much is 1 plus 1? And I expect a number in the range between 2 and 2. Yeah, this is like if I ask that question like this, yeah, or if I ask how much is 2 times 2, I expect an answer in the vicinity of the number 4. Yeah, or you can tell me it's the square root of 16. That's fine too. That's a possible answer. So in the ballpark, I expect something, and the answer I'm getting is blue. Like, what's your favorite color? I don't expect you to tell me 2 if I ask you about your favorite color, but if I ask you how much is 1 plus 1, I don't expect you to tell me your favorite color. And this is what's happening, especially in phone screens. It's like you're setting up a question, and in many times the question is like a two-parter. Yeah? The first part is something, tell me about SQL Server, and then you take a breath, and then you try to say the second part and how it works with third-party monitoring tools in your experience thing. Yeah? And people ignore the second half of the question, and then they start rambling about SQL Server. Yeah? So try to listen to the question and actually answer the question. It will make your chances of actually getting the job much, much higher if you answer the actual question. If you just randomly answer something that has nothing to do with the question, even if it's 100% correct for a different question, might not help you anywhere. And this is sad because normally if I present this in the audience, I get the laughter back. So I know if people think I'm not serious, all in this talk is dead serious. Everything actually happened to me. Yeah. Yeah. So now after the big picture question, I show what are actually the questions I ask. And I will do this for both database developers and database administrators to show that this is not a DBA or developer specific thing that happens across the board. And I'm pretty sure it happens in data warehouse and BI and reporting and data analysis and deep learning, machine learning, everywhere. Yeah? So I have a developer and a DBA version of my question. Yeah? The developer version is SQL Server offers a lot of different indexes. The DBA version is SQL Server offers a lot of different high availability options. That's the first half of the question. So either you're a developer or you're a DBA, depending on what role you're applying for, that would be the first half of the question. And the second half of the question that narrows it down, what I actually want to hear, is the same in both of them. Pick any two and compare them for me. Yeah. So this is the question. This is very simple. There's no trick. There's no evil background. It's a very simple question. I give you a broad topic, and I even let you choose two of the subtopics in that broad topic, the two you're most comfortable with, and then you tell me everything about these two and compare them. Yeah? Now I give you examples that what I got back. The most common answers are for developers and for the DBA. Clustered index clustering. So far, so good. Clustered index is a type of index. Clustering is a type of high availability that SQL can do. Non-clustered index, always on. XML indexes, database mirroring, filtered indexes, blah, 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 blah. So the answer that I get, and this is more than 95% of the candidates, instead of picking two and comparing them, candidates think it's a really good idea right now to show off and list every high availability topic or any index topic I've ever heard of and list them all down. Great. If I had asked list me all index types, or if I have asked list me all high availability options, that would be a great answer. But that was not the question. The question was pick any two and compare them. Yeah? And why is this like so important to me that a candidate that I'm hiring for a job that will be responsible for either making a company's data better or making sure that data is not lost, why I'm picking on that this person can actually listen to a question? Because if anything goes wrong and in the process of finding what's wrong, people ask questions and expect answers. So if the person cannot answer questions that are asked, yeah, or listen to coworkers what's actually the case, I'm getting a little bit nervous in things, yeah. So we have a crisis and someone says the storage array is blinking all over the place in red. We just got that message from the data center team. Yeah? The DBA that will not answer these simple questions correctly turns around and talks to his team and says, we should look in the servers and see if they have enough free memory. Great. I fully agree. It's a good check if servers are not running or there's a performance problem that you check the available memory. But you just heard from your coworker that storage is most likely be broken. Yeah. And this is why it's so important for me and many of my colleagues and thing is that people answer the actual question during an interview we ask and not just thing is, I get it. You're nervous and it's a critical moment when you're here and the candidate and yes, but try to come down and answer the question. I know you want to spill all the knowledge you have, but sometimes less is more. If you answer the actual question with a short, correct answer, that's much better than rambling anything about anything that comes into your head that's remotely related. Yeah? So the thing is, and the question was not list them all. Could be a question, but not the one I'm asking. The next point is sometimes a question can be unclear or ambiguous. Yeah? And I can guarantee you, I do this on purpose. I ask questions that you cannot answer without asking me a question back. Yeah? And this comes back to the point where I want to make sure that the candidate, when presented with information in times of a crisis or in times of a decision-making process, is actually capable of getting all the information they need to make a good decision and not just start making a decision based on the first thing they hear. Yeah? Whoever saw the movie Office Space, there's a big thing that runs through the movie, a repeating joke about jumping to conclusions and the jump to conclusion map. And in one of the companies I worked before, we actually had a jump to conclusion map. And if coworkers started to jump to conclusion and not ask all the questions to have all the information to make good decisions, we put that map literally under the desks and their chairs to remind them, hey, make sure you ask the right question. Yeah? Even in a job interview, it's not a bad thing. It's actually very good to ask for clarification or missing information in a question. And at the beginning, I mentioned that I just 2 days ago found a candidate that surprised me and that I gave the green light to hire. He didn't have all the skills down. Yeah? There were in his skill set, there were gaps. Yeah? And they were there. And everybody agreed on that talked to him. But whenever we asked him something and there was a little bit of unclear. He immediately came with really good questions, narrowing down what we actually needed. Um, he always could explain why he was doing something and not just that. Yeah? So him asking the right questions back when asked to make a decision or give an answer to a question, that impressed everybody along with. Skills can be learned. You guys are learning skills right now. Yeah? This time it's not SQL skills, but this time it's more like how to get the job you're looking for. But you're you're in a user group. You attend their sessions. So from that, if you do this a lot of time, you learn the skills over time. Yeah, thing is, yeah. But this you have to work on yourself because nobody can teach you that to listen and answer the actual questions. And if you can't, ask more questions on your end so that you can give and find the correct answer everybody's looking for. Yeah. So, for example, I give you, and unfortunately we cannot do the quiz by raising hands who knows the answer. So let's each one of you play the game for yourself and then rate yourself honestly. Yeah. Which one of these following statements is true or false? 1 plus 1 equals 2. 1 plus 1 equals 10. 1 plus 1 equals 11. Yeah. I'm pretty sure all of the audience will agree that the first one, 1 plus 1 equals 2, is true. The second one, and if I give you a little bit more hint on the first one is true if you work in the decimal system. Yeah. The second one is true if you work in the binary system. And the third one is true if you're actually working with strings. So all three are true, but it would be impossible to figure out if they're true or false without getting the detailed more uh, information from whoever asked the question. What are we? In which environment are we? Are we in a decimal environment? Are we in a binary environment? Are we just playing around with strings? Okay? If you just see the very first one, 1 plus 1 equals 2, you can probably safely assume we're talking about math in the decimal system. But if you see all three at the same time, which I showed you, then you should ask the first one, immediately your brain jumps to it's correct. The second one, you look at it, it doesn't look correct. But why would he ask that question? Is there any way it could be correct? So that's the point in time where you should ask whoever asks you these simple questions. Hey, are we talking the same system all the time, or are we talking different numeric systems? Are we talking? Once you know that, first of all, the person who asked you the question probably always says, "Yep, you found it. Great. Thanks for asking the question. That's what we were looking for." Yeah. And by the way, I have another one. 9 plus 9 equals 12, which is also true if you work with hex numbers. Yeah. So without knowing what you're doing and what's the context of a question, sometimes you can't give the answer. And during a job interview, if you ask the person who is asking the questions a question that narrows down the answer, at least when you do it to me, that impresses me so much that you immediately understood, hey, there's multiple possibilities. I need to know more to give a correct answer. Yeah. This is something I'm impressed. And I reiterate it here one more time. This is how we are looking for really good people that are interested in a very interesting job uh, to do support our gigantic data environment. This might not be the way a big organization that has a run book for everything will operate. Yeah. The next point to me is the why is always more important than the how. Yeah? So if you can explain to me why you're taking backups, I don't care that you don't know every syntax of every option of the backup command. Honestly, I don't know them. Yeah? I looked them up. Yeah? Especially with Microsoft and SQL Server not being able to be in any form, size, or shape consistent in any form. Sometimes you need an equal sign, sometimes you need a bracket, sometimes you need a space, sometimes two keywords are separated by an underscore, sometimes they're just written together, sometimes they're separated by a space. There's no consistency in the T-SQL language, and for that reason, I don't care about the syntax. I will never ask any candidate, give me the syntax of any command or anything like this. But I will ask questions like, why are you doing full backups and why are you doing log backups? Explain to me, why are you doing it? Why are you not just doing differential backups? Stuff like this. I make it up on the go. I don't have a recipe. Yeah? And for developers, the same thing. Yeah? Why are you creating views on top of tables or why not? I don't care about the syntax. I want to know why are you using a tool that is there so that I can see that you understand the tool thing is. The syntax, books online, or one of the 3 gazillion blog posts will give you the right answer. Google will get you there. Yeah? Always explains in online help. The why is what you need to know. You need to get an interesting job in the data world. You need to be able to explain to your interviewer how things are working together. And this brings me back to the candidate earlier the week. He, for every answer he gave, he explained the why. I don't know if he saw that presentation in any SQL Saturday I've given before, but I don't think so. He just did it naturally. Yeah? And that impressed everybody. As I said, it's great that you take full backups, but tell me why. You can answer that. That's great. It's great that you chose that index, but why did you do it? Yeah? Choose that index so it's covering, or you choose that index so that you can use a range scan on that column. You choose that index because the data needs to be sorted every time, because later on down in the query plan, if the data is already sorted, SQL Server can make a better decision, blah, blah, blah. Thousands of reasons. We all know everything depends in SQL Server. So do your answers here. So when you give an answer, be prepared to explain why. Yeah? When you are in a phone screen or an on-site interview with me, and you give me an answer, and it's just something that Books Online lists, I will come back and try to extract why. Yeah? My favorite one is when you ask people about database maintenance, and I get that when fragmentation is above 30%, you're doing a rebuild versus just a defrag. Yeah? Um, and I love this question because I immediately ask, why 30%? Yeah. So why is it 30%? Why not 29 or 31%? Yeah. So there's two possible answers that will get you the job. One is the one I would love, that you actually did experiments on your data and you figured out that when it's about 40%, the overhead during blah, blah, blah is getting more problem. And then so you start rebuilding them at 30%, so you have a little bit of a buffer. Great answer. You thought about it. You choose that number. Yeah? The other correct answer is, I read multiple blogs from accredited SQL Server experts, and they recommend 30%. I had a good experience with it, and that's why I choose 30%. Why should I doubt that? I don't have the time. I don't have the resources to find it out. 30% gives me good results. 3 or 4 people that I trust that are blogging about SQL Server for 10 plus years, they all agree on 30%. Seems like a good number. The answers that will not get you any farther in your job interview is, this is what we do. Because the person before me chose 30%, so I'm sticking with 30%. I have no idea where 30% so you have no idea where 30% is, but you just told me 30% is what I should go with. Comes to the why and how. The why is much more important than the how. Yeah? Or because that's the default in the script I found. Yeah? So This is just an example. I haven't asked this question, and by the way, I haven't asked any of the questions that are in this talk in a long time because yeah, I'm giving away the answers. So I came up with very new questions after I gave that talk the first time. So uh, this is another very interesting one that is great, that I love. I usually work for companies that have very little budget restrictions because they realize, for the database team, they realize that the whole business depends on data and they're making a lot of money with data. So it's probably a good idea to invest a little bit into the concept of putting data there. Yeah. So there's very few companies that can actually ask you the question. So I love to ask, and what would you do if money is not an issue question? Yeah? So like, how would you design your backup solution if money is not an issue? How would you design your server if money is not an issue? I give you a blank check. You can check my boss's bank account. Any number below $10 billion you can put in and it will clear. So what would you do? Yeah, I'm not saying spend 10 billion on it. Be reasonable, but try. Thing is, I love to hire people that really like their job. So I like the DBA that when he goes home after a frustrating day where he was told 6 times, we can't do this, we don't have enough money, that on his way home fantasizes about how would I build one backup solution, or how would I build a new data model for this database if I had the resources, if I had the money and I could just do it. Yeah? And this would be the awesome way of doing it. Yeah? So I want that guy that thinks about how can I make things better if money is not an issue. Forget money. Money is always an issue. Yeah? Next step is come up with the perfect solution. Come up with what you have now and find a compromise in the middle. Yeah? That still makes it better, but doesn't cost like much more. Yeah? So, but to do that, you have to have an idea of what could I do, and then you figure out how much it costs. So the question is, what would you do if money is not an issue for any specific topic? Yeah? And then one of the most common answers I get back is, don't tell me what you did at your current place. Yeah, that's like, no, your current place, I'm 99% sure money was the deciding factor for everything you did. Yeah, not like, is this the better solution? Yeah, because most companies look for money because that's how the world works. Yeah, you have a certain budget and then you fit whatever you can do into this budget. Yeah, so whatever solution you have in place right now is probably not the answer I'm looking for. Yeah, because be honest to yourself. Yeah, hey, if I'm wrong here, correct me there, and you can state that. Yeah, like, yes, we had that. Funny that you ask. My last company said, here's a blank check. Build me that solution. And that's what I built. That's fine. But don't just tell me what your current backup solution is and this is what you would do if you had unlimited funding. That's not things, yeah? So the gist of this is don't hold back on an open question. Yeah? If someone asks you to, on the fly, come up with some awesome solution, yeah, build something big in that moment, yeah? Especially if they tell you money is not an issue. Yeah? I remember, and this was in 2004. I remember the funny interview question I got when I was applying to the gambling company in Europe that I worked for. The guy handed me a sheet of paper and a pencil and says, "How would you build, if money is not an issue? How would you build a cluster solution to run a database with these settings?" Yeah? So I draw an awesome solution: 2 data centers, 2 storage devices, failover clustering with storage replication between it, all bells and whistles, a third data center with like a quorum machine. So 5 servers, 2 storage devices, an insane amount of network between all of them. And then we all looked at the solution, agreed it's funny, it's good, it will cost an insane amount of money, but yeah, it's a solution that would work. Okay? About a month later, I started my new position in that company. Guess what? The guy that interviewed me, now my boss, pulls out the sheet that I drew a month earlier during my interview where I said, hey, money is not an issue. That's what I built. And says, Thomas, please build that for me. You have 3 months. And we actually spent a couple of $1 million to build it, and it worked. Lucky for me, but as you can see, sometimes reality will actually catch up and you have to build that. It's not an issue thing. The next important thing, and this is as important as listening to questions, is it is absolutely okay to not know something. Yeah? Nobody knows everything. Yeah, no point. I don't know everything about SQL, and I'm spending 25 years of my life with that product. Yeah? And I'm getting surprised at least once or twice a week with, I did not know that. I had no clue this is how it worked. And yeah, it's okay to not know stuff, but you have to admit to it. You have to tell that you don't know that. Yeah? Explain how you find the answer. Yeah? Google is my best friend. Sometimes Bing, yeah, but rarely. Uh, but I look up stuff a lot because there's so many brilliant minds on the planet. Someone else might have had an idea. Yeah? Not saying I'm sticking 100% to what I'm reading, but it gives me ideas. Yeah? And again, nobody knows everything. So if you don't know it, say, hey, I don't know the answer to that question. For example, if you would ask me about analysis services, the only thing I could tell you about analysis services is if I check that one checkbox, if I uncheck it in setup, it doesn't get installed. And this is what I do all the time. Yeah? I'm in my life, I've never set up analysis services. I've never loaded data into it. I've never run a query against it. Yeah? I read a couple of pages what it can do. So if I have a case where it makes sense, I hire someone to do it for me. And I currently have some analysis services running, but I did not touch it because I know nothing about it, and there's no point for me learning it if someone else can do it. So important thing is, if you don't know something, say it. Yes, of course, it's clear. Yeah? If I ask you 10 questions and you say 10 times, I don't know the answer, this is not getting you anywhere either. But out of the 10 questions, 2 or 3, you say, I don't know, I'm unsure. I would, if I get this in a real world scenario, I would go verify with Google. I would look up books online. I would open the case with Microsoft or third-party tool. I know these 3 people that know more than I would shoot them an email, ask for their help. All valid answers that are showing, hey, you know what you don't know. And that is very important. Yeah? Never, ever make up an answer. A fantasy answer that is incorrect is unfortunately way worse than not knowing it. Way, way worse. And I have so many stories in that area. I once had a phone screen where for half an hour I argued with the guy that he swore by his life that every day he does a DBCC rearrange on all his indexes. I Googled it while being on the phone with him. The command DBCC rearrange does not exist. I emailed a couple of people at Microsoft asking, was there ever some beta version out there that had a DBCC rearrange command? It did not work. That guy thought it's a good idea. I make up a lie. I stick to it. And that will get me the job. No, it will not. This is the reality. Yeah. If thing is, yeah, don't make up something. Yeah. This is dangerous. If you do this after you get hired, this might endanger the whole company. It's better if you don't know it, you cry and you scream for help, than just randomly make something up that might get you in 3 times more trouble than you're already in. Yeah. So a wrong answer is way worse than I don't know. Yeah, because not knowing what you know is a very bad thing. And I will, in my summary at the end, explain to you why all this, with 2 very simple questions I ask myself at the end of an interview, will make sense. So to iterate the point before, I have another quiz, which again, in an interactive audience is much more fun than thing is, but try again to judge yourself honestly. Did you answer correctly? So I will give you a list of, I think it's 5 SQL Server commands. And once I gave you that list, um, you should tell me for each one of them if it's real or if Thomas just made it up. DBCC Autopilot, DBCC Clone Database,
I love the
DBCC Hackathon.
autopilot. Um,
Hello?
the autopilot was an awesome one.
Yep, I know. Uh, DBCC Hackathon, DBCC Rearrange Index, DBCC SQL Perf, and DBCC show underscore file underscore stats. And the answers that I get from people is hilarious. Honestly, so if you did your answers, unless you gave me at least 3, I don't know, you failed these questions. Yeah. So let's go through them. DBCC Autopilot is a correct command. It's in SQL Server since 7.0. Nobody ever uses it. It's an awesome feature. There's 1 or 2 blog posts on the internet. Just Google it. Be surprised what that thing can do for you. It's awesome. Nobody ever uses it. Clone database. It's a correct command. SQL 2014, Service Pack 2, 2016, Service Pack 1, 2017 out of the box, 2019 out of the box. Anything before, that command did not exist. It's getting a little bit less interesting. When I started this talk 2 years ago, it was much more fun because Clone Database was brand new at the time. And this is, again, you don't know. It's absolutely fine to say. I've never heard of it. It might be true. I can't tell. I have to look it up. DBCC SQL Perf, the last one that is actually exists. That's in SQL since the beginning of time. It's a little tool. Most people use it to figure out how big their log files are and how full they are. Yeah. The other 3, they are things. DBCC Rearrange Index, we know, I just told the story, was made up by a person I interviewed, so it doesn't actually exist. Oops. DBCC Hackathon, that's the absolute trick question. DBCC Hackathon is a valid SQL Server command in a private preview of SQL Server 2008 R2 that only about 5 people on the planet got from Microsoft. So that's a really tricky one. Yeah. So unless you worked for me at that time or one of the other 4 people at that time when Microsoft tried to show us in-memory OLTP way, way earlier than they finally released it, the answer is no, it doesn't exist. If you for one of the 5, the answer is yes, it exists. So it's a tricky one. And the last one is really nasty from me. This is where I said I will never do this, but then I figured out, yeah, why not? DBCC show file stats exists, but without the underscores. It's just DBCC show file stats in one, no spaces, no underscores. So that's a tricky one. But again, it just shows if you're unsure, admit, I don't know that. Let's figure out a way to confirm if it's actually true or not. One of the last things before we wrap it up is any interview on the phone or in person is your interview. Don't tell me what your team in your current company does. Tell me what you are doing. Yeah. So many people constantly talk about we. Yes, I want a team player, but right now I'm interested in you, not in all your coworkers and what they did over the last 5 to 10 years you worked with them. Yeah. Take credit for what you did. Say that you were a small part in larger projects. Yeah. If a junior DBA claims that he designed the whole new infrastructure, I will dig deeper and then I figure out, no, he did not design the whole infrastructure. He just ran the backup and restore commands to migrate the databases into the new infrastructure. But in his resume, he claimed that he designed and migrated SQL infrastructure for 10,000 servers. Yeah. Be take credit for what you did. Don't take credit for things you did not do. It's so easy today to check what people actually did. Yes, yeah. We used backup tool X. Yeah, we built indexes and fragmentation above 30%. We made blah blah blah. Yeah, this is we. This is what your team did. How were you involved? Tell me that. Yeah, I want to hear about you. I'm hiring you. If I had a whole team, that whole interview goes different. Yeah, things. Also, show interest in the job and the company. Yeah, I always end every interview with like, okay, I asked you way too many questions so far. Now it's your time. You can ask me whatever you want to know, whatever is unclear, what you want to know about the job, about the company, how it's like to work here, anything else. And at that point, I expect you to know a little bit about the company that you apply for. So you should have at least have like read our website. You should have some question that looks like, hey, or show some interest in our infrastructure. So you ask for this, you might think it might be the wrong place to ask me about like health benefits or so because I couldn't answer the question anyway. But show some interest in the company. Yeah. Another tip that I'm giving is look at the company's website and if they have pictures of themselves, try to adopt your appearance. Yeah? And again, this is for me. Yeah? The company I currently work for, nobody wears a suit. Yeah, you can always tell who the candidate is. It's the guy in the suit. Yeah? If you look at our webpage, every picture that shows the company shows people in t-shirts, sweatshirts, and regular pants. Yeah? Jeans, tennis shoes, everything else. There's not a single picture of anybody in the company that wears a suit or a tie. So why didn't you look at our website and try to somehow adjust your attire to match the company? You showed up in a suit. Yeah? This is not a reason why I would not hire someone, but it's just like it takes like you did not do any research about the company you're getting hired into. Yeah? If I showed up in a bank in a t-shirt, they will never hire me. Yeah, because they expect me to wear a suit every day to work, and things. Yeah, but if you're getting hired in an IT department of some company that has no contact to customers, just saying, yeah, ask about the team, the role, company, culture, adjust to the culture. Yeah, might not be the only one in the suit, not the only one in the t-shirt. Neither one is good impression. Just try to fit in. So, summary. Listen to the questions. Narrow down the answer by asking clarifying questions. Try to figure out what do they actually want from me? What do they want to hear? And then answer that question and not something random. It's not just the how, syntax, and everything. Explain why you would do something. Explain the bigger picture. This is why I'm doing this. Yeah? It depends on this and this. Yeah? This is green, then I will go to this option. If this is red, I go to this option. Yeah? Thing is, open questions. Stick to the important facts first, and then go into details. Yeah? So, yes. So, yeah, in the open questions, I see people going down in the rabbit hole of details at the very beginning, and then actually forgetting all the other things. So when I ask like conceptually, how would you do high availability? And then for the next 20 minutes, they explain me the rate settings on the controller, which is great. I know he knows rate controller settings, but they then have basically run out of time to give the actual answer that they want to have multiple machines and multiple networks and multiple data centers. The important stuff first. So, why and how I make the actual decision if I would hire someone after my 3 stages of grief that I went through with them. Hopefully, it's not griefful, so that's a good start. But I ask myself two very important questions. Yeah? And in both questions, in one of the questions, I have to put myself into someone else's shoe. So my first question that I ask me is, if I'm one of the people that are using our databases, or the data that we manage, um, basically I'm an application developer, or I'm one person in the business, and I ask that new person, it's either database developer, BI person, or DBA, a question, would I be comfortable with the answers he's giving me? So I ask him a bunch of questions. So from a perspective of someone else that is not a data savvy person, that is not a DBA, that is not a database developer, yeah, would do I have the feeling that this person that I just interviewed, when one of them asks them a question, would be helpful to them? That's the first question I ask myself. Yeah. So if I put him out there, add him to the team, and then people come ask for help, will he be able to help them, or will he make them more confused, or will he make or she make them uncomfortable, or give them like ambiguous answers, or not stick to the actual question? Thing is, yeah. So this is the first one, and the second one, which is more for the DBA, and I admit I hire much more DBAs than database developers. Um, is for DBA, the second question, and there's a version for developers, I'm sure. DBA, the other question is, so if I hire this guy and I put him in the DBA team and he's on call, can I sleep while he's doing this, or I am afraid that he will like blow up the company while he's on call? Yeah? And I try to answer this second question right after the interview. Do I feel will I ever trust this? Based on what I've heard so far, will I trust that person to do the right thing? And this comes back down to the not knowing. Will he or she, when she doesn't know what to do, stop, pick up the phone, and wake me up so that I, before that, can sleep quietly? Or do I have to sit in the background and double check everything they're doing? So will I do trust them to do this? So this is the two questions I ask myself, and if the answer to both of them is yes, there's a very, very big chance that this person will join. Sadly, from my past experience, there's many, many people that I interviewed where either neither one or one of them was a very clear no, and it did not work out. So that's it for my talk. Pretty much nailed the 1 hour. So I have no idea how this works with questions now, but I'm guessing someone will ask them because people will probably have typed them somewhere. I'm opening.
No, nothing, which is kind of very rare, but it seems that you have done your job tremendously well, Tom.
Okay.
So, yes, if I were to hire you, then definitely based on this presentation, I would.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
absolutely. So thank you
here
so much.
again are my email addresses. I will leave them open. I will somehow send you the organizer the slide deck so we can upload it somewhere.
Yes,
And if you have any questions, shoot them an email. If you're looking for a job, shoot me an email.
absolutely. Why not?
Yeah.
Take care.
I hope it was helpful, and hope to see everybody in person in one of the past events or any other conferences, user groups. I know I enjoy them.
Sure. Just a
Everybody.
word,
Yeah.
a little plug-in for our Boston SQL Saturday coming on March 30th. So any of the attendees who are here online today would like to visit Boston when it is not covered with snow. 30th March is the SQL Saturday, and would love to see you guys come and attend. Our capacity is 250. We are already at 230 registrations right now. So please do register if you are still procrastinating. Okay. So thank you everyone for attending and taking a 1 hour out of your lunchtime. And thank you, Tom. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And I will connect with you offline for my job. Okay. Oh, wait, there is a question.
Yeah.
Finally, somebody asked a question. Oh, Kenneth Van Orden says, thank you for your presentation. So, guys, please do tweet about it. That will be absolutely fabulous. If you can, the link is on the Twitter handle is on our website there on the past professional development. Please do tweet about this presentation and Tom Grohser himself too. Okay, cool. Thank you, guys.
Mhm.
Okay, sure. Bye, Tom. See you soon, man.